Welcome, Naughty Nation. Today I'm going to show you how to make a gorgeous Carrara marble that I embellished with some gold. Super easy, super elegant. You're going to love this.
The Naughty Artisan.
Today we're going to be using super gloss, which has been pre-tinted white. It's a beautiful product. Makes your life really easy when you're making marble replications. You don't have to think about dyeing your epoxy or tinting it white or any of that. It's all ready to go and you get beautiful results every time. All right, we're gonna be using a graduated cup, so we get a perfect 1-to-1 measured ratio out of it. We do 3 ounces minimum per square foot, round up, and you'll get a perfect result every time. So let's pour that out. I've got 2 boards here, approximately 1.5 feet. So let me do the math on that. We'll do up to 10 ounces. That should be more than enough for these 2. So we rounded way up on that one. All right, when you're mixing your super gloss, make sure that you're doing very careful measurements and that you put your B in first and then your A in second, particularly with the tint on it. It makes it easier to see your lines. And you're gonna see here in a second. You know that over poured, I actually have 8 in there, so we're gonna have 16. We're gonna have a ton of leftover. Now that I've got my A poured in, I'm gonna add my B in. Went a little more than 8 ounces, so we're gonna go a little more than 16 on this one. All right, remember when you're mixing your epoxy to make sure you're scraping the sides and the bottom as you stir it in. Take your time. The largest mistake that I run across with people who are needing help that have had a bad result with epoxy, they've just been in a rush. They do one of 2 things. They either don't mix their epoxy properly enough, or they don't measure it properly, so their proportions are off. Use a lot of different brands of epoxy, and I really love super gloss because it is forgiving, but it's always best to try and get the ratios as close to them as you can. So I'm gonna take my time, mix this up really well. You can see you got this beautiful white pigment. It's gonna make an awesome marble. All right, now that I've got my epoxy all mixed up, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take it and we're gonna spread it out on these boards here so we get a nice, evenly distributed amount to work with. You'll see this one I actually am reusing this sample board. I like to play with different colors and whatnot and improve my craft all the time. So rather than making a new sample board every time, I will reuse them. I do that by simply just painting over with a fresh coat of bonding primer like you see on here, and it's ready to go. I'm gonna use my hands rather than a trowel on this one. I'm just gonna lightly push these out to the edge of my boards here so that we get a nice even coat. We've got a lot on here, so this is going to marble out really nicely. All right, we're going to do that to this one too. Just like that. I like to tap it out a little, especially if I've used a trowel on it. So it's more become habit. It helps kind of get that resin. If there's any surface tension like I had right there, make sure we get that all knocked out. So you'll see right here, I missed a little, so when I come back through, I just tap it and this baby will flow over. That's it. These boards are ready to become marbleized. We're just gonna use a simple chip brush. You can get these at anywhere, any big box store, anywhere that sells paint or anything like that. They do tend to lose their bristles quite a bit, so I like to really give it a good tug and de-shed these things, get as much as we caught. On the first technique, it's gonna be more wispy, smoke-like in the epoxy. And to do that, I'm actually gonna use the butt, which is this portion right here. And as I take it, I'm gonna push it and I'm gonna be rotating my wrist back and forth, but I'm maintaining contact with my epoxy while I do that, so I get this nice layered look you'll see. Don't do this where you're jumping up and down with your brush out of the epoxy. It'll look like a rabbit just came and jumped through your epoxy, and it doesn't give you that good marble look. You wanna kinda use that butt and you're gonna keep contact and you're gonna drag it through just like that. All right, so I'm gonna take the epoxy here and I'm gonna get a bunch of it on my brush just like that, so that I'm not pulling material off the board as I go. I'm gonna use these 2 colors to embellish them at the end, so stick around. I'm just gonna use a charcoal gray for this demonstration. It's real visible, easy to use. And I'm gonna spray it right here on my tabletop that I'm working on. Give me a little color there. Like I said, I'm working with this butt here, so I'm just gonna get that in there. That's a lot, so I'm just gonna tap it out. And then we're just gonna kind of drag through in an asymmetrical motion. No straight lines on the board and off the board. You're gonna see I maintained contact and made this nice marble pattern throughout the epoxy. The white is beautiful. I don't have to think about that. There's still a bunch on my paintbrush. Or I'm just gonna tap it out. So this is all with the same amount of paint. The thing with epoxy, it's really fun to play with, but in a lot of cases, less is more. You know, so I'm just gonna go like this. This is gonna give me a nice wispy pattern here. See, I've got light coloration, so I still got some on there. And as I run it through here, just like this, these white negative space portions, as it settles out, you'll see real subtle gray that people really love. Now you'll notice I've got some bubbles here. One of my favorite things about Supergloss is it's a one-pass glass. That's what I like to call it. So I don't need to constantly be torching it and torching it and torching it to get the bubbles out. It's the perfect viscosity where it's thick enough to stay on the board, but not so thick that it's encapsulating tons of air, making it really hard to get out where you're having to constantly torch it. One torch and this is gonna be beautiful. So I'm gonna let this sit. One of the other things that I've noticed that people really rush is they really love to get that torch on there. Every time you torch it, you're heating and thinning your material, causing it to run off the board. I want as much on here. Supergloss is great. As I've let it sit from when I'm mixing, all the bubbles are gonna rise to the top, and you'll see at the end when we hit it, it's gonna be perfectly glassed out. Shake your can up really well. I'm gonna start out with a tongue depressor. I'm going to snap it at an angle so I get kind of a little teeny bit like that to work with. I like to work with that end. So this first board I'm gonna embellish with some gold. I like this bright, shiny finish. It has a real bright luster when you add it. And I'm going to put it on very last every time. The metallics tend to float on top of the epoxy and not incorporate in like the spray paints did previously. So they stay right on top. And if we try and do another layer after that, it tends to break them up and makes them look chunky. I don't personally like that, so I put them on very last with this embellishment. So I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna spray my tip just like that. And I like to follow the pattern of my marble, just like that. And we're gonna come out this side with it. And as it falls out, you'll see, I don't know if you can see that in that light, it's adding just this beautiful shine. So I'm gonna do that over here, where I'm gonna just do a little heavier, but I'm not gonna fall it all around. And I'm just gonna hit a couple spots. Like I said, this is an embellishment. So these are points of interest that are coming out of there. And let's just stick one right there just because. All right. And now, one of my favorite properties of Supergloss, I've waited to the very end, probably drove some of you crazy, is we're gonna hit it just once with a torch, and it's gonna be beautifully glassed out, super smooth. When it dries out and we put our top coats on, it's gonna be lovely. You're gonna love it. Take my handy dandy torch. We're just gonna slowly move back and forth. I'm making contact with the epoxy, but I'm not staying put in any place in particular. Work my way back. Look at that. In my epoxy countertop business, we do these all day long. Clients go crazy for them. You can layer in different colors, different looks. Hey, if this provided value to you, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel. You'd be doing us a solid.